You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of truth, a dimension of freedom, a dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
That's right, folks. Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who's also the host of a growing number of podcasts that you guys have to get out there and watch. If you don't, I'm going to call you stupid on social media. Not that that matters. Michael, what's going on The Rational Egoist? What's going on in Everyday Ethics? What's going on in Self-Made Soul? Because, I mean, you're essentially in command of that as well.
Okay, so we'll start with Self-Made Soul. So yesterday I sent you an article and asked for you to approve it for discussion this week on Self-Made Soul, but I've yet to hear back from you yet.
It's 24 pages long. It's not an article. It is a paper. I mean, it's not an article. No article is 24 pages long.
Okay, but you're aware that I sent it to you.
I am aware, and the title seems great.
Okay, so we might be discussing that. We don't know. That is on self-efficacy by the legendary psychologist Albert Bandura. Hopefully, we'll be discussing that on Saturday. Also, on The Rational Egoist right now, I've got a debate with a guy named the Radical Capitalist. I don't know who he really is. Don't really care. We had a good debate on individual rights. That's up there now. Coming soon, I'm going to be interviewing Nikos Soterakopoulos. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
You did. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So that should be out Wednesday. And by the way, 1:15 today. 1:15 today. It's on a separate link, so we're not just going to follow from here. I will be interviewing a constitutional expert, Ilya Somin, on the Constitution and the powers of war. That ought to be great. Ilya, by the way, is one of the lawyers who just beat Trump in the tariff case. So this promises to be absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that's good. That is going to be fantastic, Michael. Folks, tune in and remember to like and subscribe to this channel, please, because the algorithm likes it.
And share from YouTube, and also please go to X and share it.
Yes, please go to X and share. The algorithm likes that kind of stuff. So please, we need to get this message out there to the world, a message of individual rights, inviolable property. Look, see, I was going to comment on this picture, Michael, before we went on air. Okay. Now, I love the CGI added effect of Michael on my T-shirt. That wasn't in fact true. But if you zoom in on that picture, Michael, I look like I'm 1,000 years old. That's no. So it's totally AI generated.
Mark, you're not the star of the photo. Clearly, I'm the star.
I know you think that.
Well, look, I'm on. The question is, why does Mark Pellegrino have a T-shirt with a decal of me in a swimming pool?
Look, what does that sound? Are you hearing background noise?
From you, yeah.
It's from me?
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me see.
All right. Well, for now, we've got $10 from Jenna Kleem. Thank you so much, Jenna. You are wonderful. She can't stick around. That is sad. Okay. All right. We're going to get Mark out of here.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sound fine to me.
Okay, now it's better. I turned off the mic and then I don't know what caused it. I know Persephone's like, oh my God, these boomers. We can't deal with the technical problems.
Boomers? No, boomer.
Boomer adjacent.
Singular.
I'm not a boomer. I'm boomer adjacent. I'm right on the cusp. But Michael, I know that we have a particular order in the title here: Wartime, President, Free Speech, and then Julian Simon. But I actually want to deal with the Julian Simon stuff first, if you don't mind. I want to tell you why. Because I was an environmentalist growing up in school. That's where they started experimenting in California schools with promoting an environmentalist agenda from grade school on through middle school and high school. And so I ingested that stuff pretty heartily. And by the time I was 14 or 15 years old, I was a member of probably 7 or 8 different environmental organizations, a card-paying member of the Audubon Society, the Cousteau Society, World Wildlife Fund, you name it, I was a member of it. And I even wrote to the Secretary of the Interior under Reagan as a young man protesting the sealing in the Aleutian Islands. And I got back a massive 200-page environmental impact report that, of course, made no sense to me as a young boy. I didn't care about about economic impacts of a particular industry on a people. I cared about the fuzzy little white things with the big old eyes that were being clubbed to death.
Well, they are cute. I mean, let's be honest.
They are a really good poster child for environmentalism. Of course, I think environmentalism, if that's your thing, should be private. If you want to conserve a species, purchase the land that it's on and conserve that land. Your private property is inviolable in a capitalist world. Don't use the $9 billion that industry generates to push laws on other people that prevent them from developing their property.
Okay, so what advice do you have for those of us who just can't go around purchasing our own private islands full of seals?
Well, no, what I'm saying is the environmental industry is $8 billion per annum strong. So that's a lot of money that it can generate by groups of people pooling their funds. They can get together, they can buy property, and they can conserve it. That, I think, would be a way of exercising their, right to inviolable property without
privatization is the way to go, for sure, Mark. I think so too. Of course, I'm kidding you.
No, so but wait. The long and the short of it is, Michael, that a guy like Paul Ehrlich really had a huge influence on me. I mean, he wrote The Population Bomb in 1968, and I want to talk about this guy a little bit because in the environmental movement, Michael, and in a lot of intellectual movements on the left, you have an option that isn't really available to people in the real world. You can fail upwards. So you can start off small, as he did as an associate professor at Stanford University, all the way up to professor emeritus when he retires, and an obscure intellectual to a world-renowned, prolific author receiving dozens of awards, even though everything you project does not come true. In fact, it not only doesn't come true, Michael, it's wrong by exponential amounts.
He died. That's why we're talking about this today, because Paul Ehrlich has just died. I'm looking at Persephone. She's eating a burrito of some sort. I don't know what that's all about. But either way,
Michael, not only that, ironically, he died at like 93.
He's an old guy. She says she's eating a breadstick. I can see it's not a breadstick. Unless it's a South African breadstick. Those things might be weird. I don't know. A breadstick is they're like yay long. They're like this. She's got this giant square thing.
So I think if you cut that off at the right...
Does that look like a breadstick to you?
Yeah,
no.
It does.
No,
it actually does look like a breadstick.
Maybe crazy bread or something like that. Okay, so
Michael, all she's got to do is cut out your dialogue and have you doing this, and I think we have a perfect out of context video.
Yes, with the caption, great description of Mark Pellegrino. Okay, anyways, listen. Okay, well, look, you went there. I didn't. Here's the bottom line. He made a famous bet with Julian Simon. They picked 5 rare earth metals, and Julian Simon said, I will bet you after 10 years the price of these goes down, meaning that they will not be scarce. Julian Simon won the bet. Interestingly, as I was researching this today, I came across a number of articles explaining how, no, Paul Ehrlich was actually right. They just didn't pick the right metals, or they didn't pick the right years. The point is, this guy predicted that we would have mass starvation that we never had. He has been wrong about so many things, and Julian Simon right about so many things.
Michael, I just want to list off some awards that he's won. Now, this bet between Julian Simon and Ehrlich took place between 1980 and 1990. And if you were just going by decades, there were decades in which the prices of some of those commodities did go up, and in which Ehrlich would have won. But if you're going for the real long term, from say 1900 to the destination time, so over 100-year period or more, you would have found out that Julian Simon was right. And only one commodity sort of went up, but considering that most of these minerals were produced were mass produced on an exponential scale, so mined at sometimes 100 and 200% more than they were in the 1900s, equipping an increasingly large population, the fact that the prices more or less remain stable or the same, it proves that Ehrlich's prediction of them going out of our capacity to mine them and or increasing exponentially in price was wrong. So either way, Julian Simon wins. But Michael, listen to this.
Your mic sucks, dude. It's got to be your computer. I don't know what's happening, but the mic sucks. You're like going, yeah. Have you bought a new computer yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't even been home. All right, so hopefully this will stop. Hopefully this will stop so that you can hear me.
I can hear you.
I mean, like without going in and out. He won the MacArthur Genius Fellowship Award, the Genius Fellowship Award in 1990, Michael. So this is after he lost his bet with Julian Simon. Still awarded for being wrong. This is a guy who said, by the way, that England would cease to exist by the year 2000. He won the Crawford Prize in 1990, shared with E.O. Wilson. It's called the Nobel Alternative for Population and Biology Conservation. Okay, now he might have done some interesting things with respect to the population of butterflies, but we know, Michael, that when you extrapolate butterfly populations to human populations, it doesn't quite work out. He won the Heinz Award in 1995, the Tyler Prize for Environmental Achievement by 1998. This is after multiple predictions are wrong. The Blue Planet Prize. He's a fellow of the Royal Society. He was made a fellow of the Royal Society in 2012. Frontiers of Knowledge Award, and also got the John Muir Award from the Sierra Club, of which I was a member at one time. The World Wildlife Fund Gold Medal, of which I was a member at one time. Multiple honorary degrees. U.S. National Academy of Sciences member. My God, talk about failing up. He became more famous being wrong and yet being embraced by the environmentalist movement than Julian Simon was by proclaiming one thing, that the greatest resource that humans have available to them is the human mind, and that is nearly infinite. And he was right, folks. You need to throw Paul Ehrlich on the trash heap of history. Sorry to do dishonor to the memory of a human being, but he's not a good guy. He's intellectually dishonest, and the world rewarded him for it. Instead, you need to get books by Julian Simon because he's right. And yes, if you listen to Julian Simon over Paul Ehrlich, you won't vote for these crazy environmentalist policies that they're constantly trying to foist on us. The American government's trying to do it, Michael. The UN's trying to do it. All the main political parasitic organizations out there are trying to do it.
You see, Persephone, you're driving her crazy with your mic. I don't know what you've done, but it's making me sad. Let me see if I can't fix you up a little bit. Maybe I can jimmy this up and make you a little. I can. It won't let me edit your mic settings, Mark. Unmute yourself, please.
All right, I'm unmuted.
All right, let's see.
Oh, wait a minute.
Now you're not at all.
Hold on. How's that?
I don't know, dude. Talk.
Check 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Much better, right?
Okay, so it was on my computer mic instead of my Shure mic, so that might have been the problem.
Okay, so I want to pivot now because I want to get into something that you and I have been discussing. The war in Iran. We've, of course, gotten caught up in some controversies. And I recently debated a guy named Michael Niren on this show who said that constitutional originalists are rationalists, whatever. But so today, Michael Niren posted this. It's actually a shared post from the objectivist lawyer Adam Mossoff. So let me just read this to you from Adam Mossoff. He says, the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, BBC, CBS, 60 Minutes, etc. all make it sound like the war against the Islamic regime of Iran is floundering at best or is a failure at worst. This is so wrong that I'm gobsmacked that the media has misled so many people. He said, here's the facts. As of this morning, U.S. and Israel have completely decapitated the Islamic regime. Its navy sits on the bottom of the sea with over 100 ships sunk. It is no longer able to fire more than 1 to 2 ballistic missiles per day, and soon it will be 0. The Basiji thugs who slaughtered thousands of innocent Iranians 2 months ago are themselves being wiped out and are running away at the faintest sound of a drone. Islamic regime foreign diplomats are requesting asylum in multiple countries. There are reports of regime troops refusing to show up for duty in Iran. The war is succeeding in the goals of its phases. It will ultimately remove the greatest source of global terrorism and an imminent nuclear threat to all Western countries, including the U.S. and Israel. Okay. Now, I don't know. I'm not a military expert. I can't judge the success or the failure of the war. I know I've been down this road before, where the news was reporting that the Iraq war was going terrible, and my preferred sources were telling me it was going great, and I ended up with egg all over my face. Doesn't mean the same thing's happening. So I asked Michael Niren, what are Mossoff's sources for this post, and has he fact-checked him before posting it? And now, by the way, I ran the post through Claude, ChatGPT, and Grok to check for accuracy. And let's just say it didn't do well for accuracy, according to those three. Doesn't mean they're right, but it's something rather than nothing. And when all three say the same thing, But anyway, he responds, Michael Niren, dude, this is Facebook, not writing a Harvard peer review paper. My sources as a consumer of media have been culled over the years, and yes, beyond just Adam Mossoff. I can tell you, however, pacifist libertarians are not among them. Okay, so Grok, ChatGPT, and Claude are pacifist libertarians. And asking somebody for their sources when they post something like this on their feed evidently is just beyond the pale. You're not supposed to do it. Folks, let me just tell you, that is not how you win debates. That's not how you change minds. That is not how you bring people over to your side. Anybody can post on social media whatever bullshit they want. Anybody can. But if you want to be thought credible, and I thought objectivists want to be credible, want to post stuff that they are sure is true, is accurate, not post a post that somebody else put up. Don't fact check it, just put it up. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Michael, I hate the smear of pacifist libertarians because and I'm speaking for the Capitalist Party now as the chairman of the Capitalist Party. This show is not affiliated with the Capitalist Party. We have that little disclaimer on there. But I want you to know, what, Persephone? Why do you look like you swallowed something bad?
Your audio is so jacked right now.
Is it really?
And I think it is. You're like loud and unequalized. And I think the
talk
whining
now. Go ahead, Mark.
Check 1, 2, 3. Check. Can you hear me? Is it still the same?
Better, but I also think that whining is coming from Michael's microphone.
My microphone is whining?
Yeah.
I don't hear any whining.
It's a background noise. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, because when Mark was muted, it was still coming through. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough. But I think it's yours.
Everything I got is connected. I'm not hearing any problems at all. So I don't know.
All right. Let me know if my voice goes in and out. Is it better, Persephone, right now?
Sounds better.
Okay.
Maybe I just need to modulate my distance from the mic because I hover over it like it's food.
Even though we've told you numerous times, don't do that. Okay, Persephone. Go ahead.
What was I saying, Michael, before I was so rudely interrupted by you?
Libertarians.
Yeah, calling us pacifist libertarians is just doesn't fly, guys. It's not. We are not anti-war, but we do understand as people who believe in the concept of individual rights that there should be constitutional restraints on the capacity to make war. Since you and I, folks out there listening to us, are the people who have to pay for the war and suffer the consequences of the war, the power to make war should be in the hands of our representatives. And we think that is why the constitutional restraint on executive power with respect to making war exists. It protects our rights since we are the primary people to pay the price for the war. My own personal feelings about Iran are that the mullahs need to go, that the regime needs to go, and that the only way to get them out of the country is to do it violently, because that's all that authoritarian regimes respond to. However, my commitment to constitutional principles says if we're going to commit troops to that kind of endeavor, we have to do it through the Constitution to protect the rights and liberties of our soldiers, of the people who paid the price for that. And folks, once you declare war properly through the representatives of the people, you can be all in. It's when the executive is exercising his war powers that it's at the discretion of a single man, that capriciousness and whim can step in, where it's not so inappropriate to have no guiding directive for the war, as is happening right now. Where the president is vacillating so much on what the goals of the war is. I can't imagine anybody wanting to come into an alliance with the United States because the president doesn't seem to know what he wants to accomplish. Go ahead, Michael.
I've said this over and over again. Convince me. I'm open to being convinced that if there's a declaration, I would support the war. Because like you said, the mullahs are horrible human beings. I would like to see them go. But I need to be shown that it's in America's interest to do it, right? And one of my concerns is the person at the top. So let me just put this up here. Now, yesterday, I shared a clip where Trump said, it's arguable that we shouldn't even be there. Now, he might have been speaking about the Straits of Hormuz. It wasn't really clear. But either way, to say that we shouldn't even be there, it's debatable, is not what that you want to hear from your commander-in-chief who's just committed the country to war. Here's something else he said.
We don't need oil. We have all the oil we need for ourselves. It's one of the great assets that we have. We have more than double what anybody else in terms of oil production. We're at more than double any other country. So we don't need it, but we did it. It's almost, you could say we did it out of habit, which is not a good thing to do. But we did it because we have some good allies there. We have some great Middle Eastern countries there, Israel there. So we did it for a lot of reasons. But
okay, does that inspire confidence? Because people have told me it doesn't matter who the commander-in-chief is, which I called bollocks on that. Because when the commander-in-chief on one day says it's debatable whether we should even be there, on the next day said maybe we did it out of habit, which is never a good thing because we don't even need the oil. If I'm on the front lines, if I'm risking my life, that is not what I want to hear from the person who sent me there. Mark?
Yeah. Look, I think that comment was with respect to the Straits of Hormuz. The context of it was trying to build a coalition to protect the shipping going through the Straits of Hormuz, and he's having trouble building an international coalition. Now, Michael, of course, the European Union doesn't want to come in on this because I think they rely on about 4% of what goes through the Straits of Hormuz for their energy needs. The United States, about 2%. So why would the European Union risk men and risk valuable equipment to guard the Straits of Hormuz for such a little payback? In addition, Michael, he's spent the last year or so in office alienating the entire country with a tariff war. So it's not like he's making everybody dispositionally interested in being our allies. He's even been going against our trading allies, people that have signed contracts with the United States to have a free trade policy. He's even thrown those policies and trade agreements out the window to persecute them. Now, Japan, South Korea, even China get a huge proportion of their oil that goes through the Straits of Hormuz, and it would be within their self-interest to protect the Straits and to make sure that there's a safe passage of energy going through there. But again, they're less inclined to do that. Now, I think what he was referring to was, that we sort of instinctually just act in the interests of other people and take up the slack for the fact that they're not protecting their own interests. But Michael, you can't make generalized statements like that as the president of the United States, which can be taken out of context to imply that we shouldn't be in the region at all.
Well, now, I don't know, Mark. I don't know. In regard to the first one, they were talking specifically about the Straits of Hormuz. This we didn't have to do it. That seems a little bit different to me. Now, I'm with you. Look, he's vague in his pronouncements, but he's clearly talking about war. I mean, he said, why did we do it? Is because we have allies in the region. Clearly he's not talking about, investing in resorts. Maybe not. You know what I mean? I'm just saying that this is a dangerous way for a president to talk during wartime.
Exactly. And I think the thing here, Michael, that a president or somebody from the political class, they can't speak in ambiguous terms. They should not speak in ambiguous terms. They shouldn't pass laws that are ambiguous, that can be interpreted multiple ways. They have to speak in very clear, concise terms so that people understand exactly what it is they are trying to do policy-wise in those nations. And the fact of the matter is Trump is so anti-intellectual that he can't speak in those terms, Michael. And if anything, you need a commander-in-chief, particularly at the helm of a military action overseas that has such great consequence. You need specificity and clarity. And that's one thing they do not have. I don't know that they have an end game anymore, Michael. And all the people that's go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, he says that he's got this coalition that's getting ready to come in and protect the Straits of Hormuz. Then he comes out and says, well, the people don't seem to want to help. And what about preparation? Let's take a look at this. It has to do with their preparation for the war.
Look what happened in the last 2 weeks. They weren't supposed to go after all these other countries in the Middle East. Those missiles were set to go after them. So they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked.
Okay, first of all, the statement when you're at war, they weren't supposed to do that. Dude, like what fucking world are you living in? They weren't supposed to do that. And then to say nobody expected it when from what I've seen, plenty of people expected it.
Yeah, Michael, I expected it. Now to think that the chief of the staff, the military staff, and the chief of staff and the commander in chief of the armed forces did not expect Iran to use the only weapon really open to it, because militarily it's no challenge to the United States. But what can it do? It can use its resources to attack oil. It can use the resources to attack oil reserves in the Arab states and the OPEC countries, because that's its only hope. Its only hope is to put the economic squeeze on the rest of the world to such a degree that the rest of the world says, we're done. We can't handle this anymore. Now, if I can figure out, Michael, that this would be a major strategic interest for Iran, why couldn't the president and why couldn't the military leaders of our country figure that out? So, Michael, the guy has got to be either the most stupid human being on the planet and shouldn't be in office and shouldn't be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, or he's incompetent.
Well, yeah, and look, I don't want Americans dying. I don't want people, innocent civilians dying either. But I don't want Americans dying. I don't want Americans sent to fight a war where there's no end game, where the president says, well, maybe they shouldn't even be there, where the president says we didn't even anticipate what plenty of people anticipated. That's not a good sign. I also, I asked a question on Facebook today. Does anybody still think that Iran is going to be a free country after this? Because remember at the beginning, he's telling the protesters help is on the way. But now that's switched to, well, we kind of just want to keep the existent regime is going to stay in there. We don't want to go dicking around. He also said Pahlavi's a lightweight or whatever. You don't want him in there. Those are bad signs. Look, the United States military, there's zero doubt in my mind, could wipe this country out very, very quickly. That has never, ever been my concern. If they were allowed to, they could wipe that country out. My concerns were the Constitution first, and second, the guy running the show. He's shown no evidence at all that he's competent to execute this kind of war. At all. None. I don't know if you saw, but Joe Kent, somebody from the anti-terrorism department or something, resigned today. He resigned. He said, look, this war was unnecessary. He said, I'm in the intelligence. There were no signs that there was an imminent threat from Iran. Is he wrong? I don't know. But what I know is that's the type of thing that could be debated in Congress. You don't want a president on his own deciding. The reason is because while a lot of people right now, understandably dislike the Iranian regime, if he can do it here, he can do it elsewhere. Right? He could go and say, well, this country's an imminent threat. We see intelligence that says, no, it's not. Trump says, no, it is. And he does it. And how are you going to push back on that? How are you going to stop it? You've already tossed out the Constitution.
So, Michael, we have a statement here in the chats that I want to address because it says if citizens pick a businessman for a president, his style be transactional. Now, I don't mind somebody who has transactional point of view with respect to dealing with other countries. The problem is his form of transactions is a perverse notion of what a transaction is and what exchange is. And the perverse notion comes from a zero-sum perspective of the way the world works. There are some businessmen, Michael, especially in a mixed economy, who are allowed to carry that perspective because they get undue privileges from the government. But in a free market economy, you don't understand transactional relationships as zero sum. You understand them as value for value trades. You understand that the other person has to profit as well as you, and it's not about knocking out the competition in the way of hobbling them. It's about the transaction is about gaining value instead of gaining a value at the expense of another. So he's not a type of businessman, I think, that I would elect to be president. I never voted for him ever. Not even as a lesser of two evils argument. I never voted for him. His style is based on a zero-sum way of looking at the world and an authoritarian mindset, Michael, because authoritarians look at the world as zero-sum, to be honest with you. And there's something here, Michael, that Ian Gilmore says, question, 13 U.S. soldiers died in Biden's Afghanistan withdrawal, and it sunk Biden's presidency. That's debatable to me. 13 soldiers have died in U.S.'s attack on Iran. Will it sink Trump? What do you say to that?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's going to sink Trump. Who knows? The problem, one of the problems is you have people that will defend him till the end of the earth, no matter what he does. It doesn't matter. Somebody asked me yesterday on Facebook, name some lies Trump's told. I went through an entire list, fact-checked myself 3 times, and the guy said, oh, yeah, see, those are all lies. That's all bullshit. None of that's not true. When I told him that Trump lied about the dancing Arabs, the guy sent the picture of the Arabs who were dancing in the Middle East, which was not what Trump claimed. Trump claimed it was in New Jersey. In the same thread, the guy mentions, he then again claims that this did happen in New Jersey. When people are willing to go to that degree, another guy told me about the presidential election of 2020. All the facts that I present don't matter because he saw it with his own eyes. When you have a base of support like that, it puts a floor beneath which it doesn't seem he can drop. So the only place he can really go from there is up. Will that happen? I don't know. Look, we got to Trump through a long, long line of constitutional erosions, lack of concern for liberty, lack of decorum, lack of class, and not only from Republicans, by the way. You know, a lot of this stuff came from, Democrats, other left-wing organizations. And, it really irks me that we're here. It bothers me. It's like to my core because we don't need to be here. But yet here we are. Why? And the only place to really put the blame, I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm not. I don't know why I said I'm sorry. Maybe I'm acting out of habit where you apologize for things. It's the American people. The American people are choosing this dumb shit. It's the American people that put first one senile guy against a narcissistic sociopath, and then a word salad machine against that same lying sociopath. These were the options. I mean, and then they picked this guy. The other option wasn't no peach either. But who do you blame? Who do you blame? There's plenty of information out there, for instance, on basic economics. You don't need to get a PhD in economics to read, for instance, Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson, or Leonard Read's iPencil, Milton Friedman's Free to Choose, Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics. That's easy to do. It's easy to read. You can understand it. Right? I mean, there's plenty of civics courses you could take. Randy Barnett's Restoring the Lost Constitution. There's plenty of that type of stuff out there that you can read, but people will not do it. So what do? They end up supporting Trump. They end up, with objectivists saying to me, this is Facebook. I don't need to have sources. Okay. All right, I guess. Like what? I don't do that shit. I don't post things if I can't tell you where I got the information. Right? I don't care if it's Facebook or I'm talking to my neighbor. But that's where we are.
Yeah, people are making concessions, Michael, that there are spaces in which they do not have to have integrity. I don't have to tell the truth on social media, for crying out loud, even though I'm spreading something that isn't true. Come on, man. That reflects on your integrity. Either you have integrity or you don't, man. Either you're behaving with the intent to spread the truth or understand the truth, or you're not. You're protecting your tribe. There's no, in certain mediums it's okay not to be honest. No, honesty is for your own benefit, y'all. I mean, honesty and the clarity with which you see reality benefits you as a human being. And if you say there are exceptions to that rule, you're just undermining your own integrity, folks. And you know what? If you have a compromised integrity, how am I supposed to believe you across the board? If you think there are some areas in which you don't have to promote the truth, how will I know that those areas won't expand to others? I don't. But Michael, do you think, going with Ian Gilmore's thing, that this really sunk Biden, the idea that the 13 soul? I don't think so either. And it was definitely hammered by Trump as inept, but what really sunk him was when the media could not hide anymore that he was truly incapable of handling the office. And when the DNC did their bait and switch, it was really that. They couldn't hide anymore that the guy was truly senile and incapable of dealing with the rigors of the executive office. That's what I think put the nail in his coffin, not the fact that these poor people were killed over there, and that we abandoned many Afghani folks who actually helped our military to a terrible fate against the Taliban there. Do you agree with that, Michael, or you have another take?
No, I think you're actually right. And, Race Jacobson mentioned something here in the chat about what if a future president uses the War Powers Act to go against Israel? Not just Israel, anybody, right? I mean, this is the problem, that if it's allowed, it's just like the people who love judicial activism when it goes in their direction. Okay, but you're not going to like it when it goes against you. And it's the same idea, same principle. Not good.
Yeah, we've been saying that forever, Michael. It's like when people come against us because they call us, constitutional absolutists, and we're treating the Constitution as if it's a piece of scripture. Well, the Constitution came out of a lot of reasoning, inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning, that these men studied principles of politics. They studied the history of political systems throughout time. I think Adams wrote a 9-volume history of government. These guys pretty well understood the nature of power, and they also understood the nature of government to such a degree that they wanted to constrain it to best protect the rights and liberties of people here at home. Michael, I want to use this as a pivot point here, because you hear a lot, especially in conservative media, that immigrants don't have the same rights as citizens. This has really disturbed me, because it subjects immigrants, illegal immigrants is what they're particularly talking about, to, I think, to an unequal application of the law. It puts them, it makes a apparently free society engage in the type of anti-litigious behavior that you'd see in an authoritarian regime, where this particular brand of people is outside the arc of rights protections. And since, from my understanding of the founding fathers, the concept of rights was applied universally to anybody who came under the umbrella of the protections of our Constitution, this has never made sense to me. And it feels like it's a super, super shaky road to go down, Michael. Like, let's not apply principles of truth and honesty universally across the board. Let's not apply the principle of rights universally across the board to anybody who comes in the United States. What do you think about this idea that the conservatives have been pushing lately, that immigrants, particularly illegal immigrants, have no equal protections under the Constitution?
Well, this stemmed from an article that was in Reason magazine today, because it's being argued again. But this issue's been solved, that the First Amendment does indeed apply to people that are in the country, whether they be immigrants, citizens, or no. And the Constitution, by the way, does refer to persons, people, and citizens. So when it means citizens, it says citizens. So, we can go to James Madison on this, for instance. And James Madison said, again, it is said that aliens not being parties to the Constitution, the rights and privileges which it secures, cannot be at all claimed by them. To this reasoning also, it might be answered that although aliens are not parties to the Constitution, it does not follow that the Constitution has vested in Congress an absolute power over them. The parties to the Constitution may have granted or retained or modified the power over aliens without regard to that particular consideration. But a more direct reply is that it does not follow, because aliens are not parties to the Constitution, as citizens are parties to it, that whilst they actually conform to it, they have no right to its protection. Aliens are not more parties to the laws than they are parties to the Constitution, yet it will not be disputed that as they owe, on one hand, a temporary obedience, they are entitled in return to their protection and advantage. If aliens had no rights under the Constitution, they may not only be banished, but even capitally punished without a jury or other incident to a fair trial. But so far has a contrary principle been carried in every part of the United States that, except on charges of treason, an alien has, besides all the common privileges, the special one of being tried by a jury, of which one half may be also aliens. James Madison Report of 1800. There's been numerous court cases also that have ruled this way. So, I mean, it's just silly to say that if they're in this country, they're not protected by the Constitution. They certainly can't vote because voting applies to citizens, right? That is actually in the Constitution. But beside that, they do have constitutional protections, and they should have, by the way.
Yeah, Michael, Gary Menard says that certain individuals on American soil have less rights under the Constitution than certain others in American soil is inherently anti-American. That is true, and that is what the American Capitalist Party stands for. You come under the umbrella of the protections of the Bill of Rights, folks. As an individual, your life and property are inviolable. Inviolable. And it doesn't matter that you came here, quote unquote, illegally. What matters is that you are an individual now under the protections of the Constitution, period. And that means you are entitled to the pillars of rights, freedoms, rights and freedoms, trial by jury, one of the greatest protectors of human freedom that has ever been devised in civilization. It really frosts me, Michael, that the right has completely abandoned constitutional restraints, that they've completely abandoned I don't think they've ever defined themselves in this way as conservatives. Buckley, said conservatives stand astride history and say no or stop or something like that. That's a terribly negativistic way to look at conservatism. When I was flirting with conservatism in the 90s, I basically looked at conservatives as conserving classical liberalism because that was our tradition. The American tradition is a tradition of classical liberalism, which means government that can do nothing more than protect individual rights. That's what liberalism really is. You are free, folks, free to do anything you choose, to pursue your desires to your heart's content, provided you don't harm another person. That's true liberalism. It's not what it morphed to be in the latter part of the 19th century and early part of the 20th century, where we can use science and technocrats to engineer society to the outcomes that we want. That's what liberalism changed into. That's not what liberalism is, and that's not what conservatism was originally, I think, protecting. And had William F. Buckley actually defined conservatism in those terms, we might have a clearer ideology today than one that's been co-opted by the Christian nationalists. Do you agree with this, Michael?
Yeah, and right now on the right, of course, there's the post-liberals of the Patrick Deneen variety who, think the Enlightenment was a mistake. They oppose liberalism. They They oppose individualism. But Akira Felix says there's only a handful of people still defending the separation of powers and the Constitution. Well, you may count me among them, sir, and Mark.
And you count me among those as well. Hopefully, we're enough in number to deal with I think what is a society-wide problem. But Michael, I always think that even though we're few in number, we have reason on our side, and we have rational principles on our side, and that makes our argument stronger. So if we're allowed to compete in the marketplace of ideas, we eventually win. I don't know if it's in our lifetimes, but We will win at some point, just like I think Rand will win at some point. It's just going to be a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. All right, listen, I'm ready to start wrapping up.
Okay, yeah, you have to leave. You have to leave a few minutes early because you got a lot of work to do. So should I give the capitalist thought of the day?
Yeah, and I'm also going to go back. We got to answer the questions from yesterday.
Oh, go ahead. Let's do that first.
Do that first? All right.
Yeah.
So they're not really questions. They're answers to my question. I asked yesterday, who's a politician you trust? Here's Ironheart says Thomas Massey. Jenna Kleem says, I trust no one. Akira Felix says Rand Paul, who, by the way, I guess is hinting he may be running for president. I would vote for Rand Paul for president.
As I would.
He's not perfect, but I think he's much better than anybody else that's running.
That would be the first time there's really a choice, Michael, on the ticket.
Yeah. Megan Ribbons comes in and says, I think when people say Trump lies, they're being too charitable. To say that he lies implies that he has some awareness of reality outside his own head. I don't think he does. I think the world inside his head bears no resemblance to the world outside his head. You know, there's something to that. If anybody, you can look up bullshit. As put out by Harry Frankfurter, or maybe Harry Frankfurt. I don't remember. It's one or the other. Frankfurt, whatever. Bullshit is basically just a lack of concern for the truth. So where you have a guy like Bill Clinton was a clear liar, but when he got caught, clearly he would, you could tell he cared about the truth because he would try to hide his lies, first of all. And then when he was caught, he would say, ugh, I was caught. I'm sorry. Trump just doesn't care. Like he just throws it out there. We have Gary Menard gives us $4.99. He says, Mark is right. The Constitution and especially the Declaration are classical liberal political documents. Yes, Gary, you are spot on. All right. Marcus Pellegrinois, give us the capitalist thought of the day.
Look, we want the world to be free. We want individuals to be free. And we know that the only system that provides that for people or enables that to happen is a capitalist economic system, one in which the government is restrained to only act against those who initiate force against others, where it protects property rights, where people have a clear idea of what property rights are, and where the overarching moral ideal underpinning the society is individual rights. This is a society that we strive for. That's why we want you to like and subscribe to this channel and to spread it across social media platforms, because we think this ideal of individual rights and individualism can change the world for the better. It can change the world for the better. We are idealists in the right sense of the term, in that our ideals are rooted in reality. They are achievable, folks. All of Ayn Rand's heroes were achievable. Our pure capitalist system is not theoretical. It's something that can be achieved too. You just have to have the will to do it, and you have to have the courage to stand on your own and to not be a party to this state interventionism that we find out there. So, Michael, we want a free world. We want a free society. If you agree with us, join the Capitalist Corner. Join the American Capitalist Party. Go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org and be a part of the change, folks. Go ahead, Michael. What are you going to say?
Just in a little over 25 minutes, again, I will be interviewing constitutional expert Ilya Soman, Professor Ilya Soman, on war and the Constitution. That'll be on this channel. I'll be posting the link. The link is already on YouTube. I'll be posting it to Facebook and X shortly. Check this out. It's sure to be a great interview. I've interviewed him before. He's always good, always on point. And at 2:30 p.m. today, Persephone and I will be doing Everyday Ethics. Please tune into that as well. And the question, let's see, what can I ask? If you were to have one change to the United States Constitution, what would it be? That's the question. Please go to YouTube and answer. It helps the algorithm. Remember, one change you would add to the United States Constitution? All right, Mark, take us out.
Guys, stay tuned, because Michael's going to have a great discussion. Stay tuned for that. And you know what? Just stay tuned for Everyday Ethics, too. What? Did I do it wrong?
Yes, you're not staying tuned. You're going somewhere else.
No, you are there, but aren't they staying on this channel?
Yeah, they got to go. Yeah, but not on this. Just tell them to go click the links.
Go click the links, folks. Click the links. So we want them to stay on their computers, wherever they're listening.
If they
to
stay tuned to this, they're going to be staring at a blank screen.
Go click the links, folks. Click the links that they're going to provide for you, so you can watch this great discussion that's going to happen, and then click the links so that you can go to Everyday Ethics, so you can get a good dose of the right kind of ethics, so you can, I don't know, you can tap your potential and live a happier life. I will be here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. You got a lot of time, folks, to check your premises. So please remember, check your premises. Peace.